My name is Amanda Garcia, and I never imagined that the day I thought would mark the end of everything would actually become the beginning of my understanding of a mother's deepest love. After my father passed away, my mother Linda called my sister and me to the family home in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio. What she announced that day would shake the very foundation of everything I believed about our family. She declared that all of Father's inheritance would go entirely to my sister Stephanie. I could not comprehend this decision. For 8 long years since Father's stroke had left him paralyzed, Stephanie had barely lifted a finger to help with his care. When I voiced my protest, Mother responded with casual indifference, asking, "Did you care for your father just for the money?" I could not understand why, after all my sacrifices and devotion, I was not even permitted to seek what was rightfully mine. Years later, when I opened the jewelry box Mother had left for me, I would finally understand the profound wisdom behind her seemingly heartless actions. Just days after Father Thomas was laid to rest, Mother Linda summoned my sister Stephanie and me to our childhood ranch house in the Columbus suburbs. With great solemnity, she began to explain the family's financial situation. "Your father left behind 2 properties," she said, her voice steady and formal. "There's this 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom ranch house where we've lived for so many years, and there's also a downtown apartment. The bank account holds $50,000 in cash, and his 401k retirement account contains $450,000. I'm getting older now, and I won't have much use for all this money." My palms immediately grew clammy with perspiration. I thought to myself that this moment I had been dreading was finally upon us. As the elder daughter, according to American inheritance laws, I should rightfully receive half of everything. However, Mother's next words struck me like lightning from a clear sky. "Amanda, as the older sister, you should naturally be generous toward your younger sibling. I've decided to leave both the houses and all the money to Stephanie. You don't have any objections to this arrangement, do you?" A flash of triumph crossed Stephanie's face as she moved closer to Mother's side, speaking in that saccharine tone she had perfected over the years. "Thank you so much, Mom. I just knew you were the most wonderful mother in the world." "This is completely unfair." I shot to my feet, my entire body trembling with indignation. Ever since Father's stroke had left him bedridden, I could count on my fingers the number of times Stephanie had visited the nursing home or the hospital. She had never cared for Father for even a single day. What possible justification could there be for her to inherit everything? Mother frowned deeply. "Stephanie doesn't have your earning capacity, Amanda. Can't you find it in your heart to be generous with her? Must you be so calculating about every penny?" "Mum, this isn't about who's weaker getting special treatment. Besides, over these past years, I've been the one taking care of Dad. Did you care for your father purely for financial gain?" Mother interrupted me sharply, her expression filled with subtle mockery. She spoke as though I were nothing more than a greedy, money-obsessed daughter who had abandoned all filial duty. Yet she knew better than anyone how much I had sacrificed during those 8 years of caring for Father. The year Father suffered his devastating stroke, I was at the peak of my career, serving as regional manager for a major supermarket chain. For Father's sake, I abandoned an excellent opportunity for promotion to state director, spending my days and nights at his bedside. Although Medicare covered some expenses, we still faced $3,000 in monthly care costs that came out of my own pocket. Even with professional caregivers helping, at 120 pounds, I frequently had to assist in moving Father, who weighed over 180 pounds, to various medical appointments and examinations. To prevent bed sores, I massaged and repositioned him daily until all 10 of my fingers were cracked and bleeding from the constant work. During that entire period, Stephanie would rather spend all night at the casino with her friends than spare even a moment to visit father. Mother suffered from arthritis and couldn't handle the physical demands of care, so all the heavy responsibilities fell squarely on my shoulders alone. Consequently, I neglected my own family obligations. Ryan complained bitterly and repeatedly about my absence, and eventually he could no longer tolerate the situation and filed for divorce. My daughter Isabella chose without hesitation to live with her father and refused even to visit me. After all my sacrifices and losses, why should I be denied even the right to claim what was mine? Faced with my tearful accusations, Mother remained completely unmoved. Regardless, I've made my decision. However, I do have some jewelry that I can give you instead. How could those trinkets possibly compare to $500,000 and 2 houses? Before I could respond further, Stephanie shouted, "Amanda, haven't you said enough? Mum has high blood pressure. Do you want to give her a heart attack before you're satisfied?" Mother patted Stephanie's hand gently. "I'm feeling rather tired. Please help me back to my room to rest." Stephanie agreed immediately, supporting Mother's arm and whispering something in her ear that brought a look of contentment to Mother's face. If any outsider had witnessed this scene, they would certainly have concluded that Stephanie was a devoted daughter. To me, however, the sight was utterly nauseating. Stephanie had been rebellious since childhood, performing poorly in school and constantly associating with troublemakers from outside the school grounds. During 9th and 11th grade, she had 2 separate abortions. Later, she failed to graduate even from community college. When our parents offered $10,000 for her to pursue beauty or nursing training, she squandered the entire sum on entertainment and frivolous spending. 3 years ago, after Stephanie discovered that she was not our parents' biological child, she began creating constant drama, demanding to find her birth parents. Indeed, Stephanie was not their child. Father had found her as an abandoned infant on a Greyhound bus during his journey home from military service after the Vietnam War. He had just been discharged and was traveling to Ohio when he discovered her. Perhaps influenced by too many soap operas, Stephanie harbored fantasies of reuniting with wealthy birth parents. 6 months ago, she finally located her biological family through a DNA testing website. To her disappointment, her birth parents were merely farm workers in Alabama, surviving on food stamps and government assistance. Only then did she abandon her foolish dreams. Despite graduating high school years ago, she remained completely dependent on our parents financially, constantly demanding money while showing father no concern whatsoever during his illness. I never understood why our parents clearly favored Stephanie over me, their actual biological daughter. It was as though she were their true child, and I were the outsider. "You should go home now. Having Stephanie here with me is quite sufficient. You don't need to visit frequently anymore. Focus on your work instead." Mother delivered this cold dismissal and, with Stephanie's assistance, retreated to her bedroom. As the door closed, I clearly saw Stephanie's lips curve into a provocative smirk. Returning to my 1-bedroom apartment in the downtown area, I faced the empty space and felt my body slowly slide down along the front door as the grief I had suppressed for so long finally erupted. I sat on the cold hardwood floor, covering my face with my hands and sobbing uncontrollably. Sunset light filtered through the blinds, illuminating my prematurely graying hair. Though I was only 38 years old, half my hair had already turned white. The doctor explained that this was due to excessive stress and exhaustion, recommending therapy and more rest. But when did I ever have time to rest? Every morning brought the constant rush between corporate headquarters and the nursing facility. 8 years of mental and physical exhaustion had led to this devastating result. What hurt and puzzled me most was Mother's sudden change in attitude. Previously, although Mother favored Stephanie, she had always shown genuine care for me as well. As a retired elementary school teacher from Columbus Public Schools, she had always taught us the importance of treating others fairly. During those 8 years of caring for Father, whenever Mother saw my white hair, she would inevitably tear up with emotion. I could not comprehend why she would suddenly treat me with such cruelty. Just then, my iPhone began vibrating. Seeing Mother's number, I immediately declined the call. When she called back persistently moments later, I simply added her number to my blocked contacts list. As the saying goes, where the money flows, there the love shows. Since she valued her adopted daughter more than her biological child, let Stephanie handle all the filial obligations from now on. I was finished with thankless efforts that brought nothing but pain. My ex-husband Ryan sent a text message saying he would be working late and asking me to pick up our daughter Isabella from school. Wiping away my tears and gathering my composure, I drove my Honda Civic to the school. At the school entrance, Isabella's face fell the moment she saw me. "Where's Dad?" she asked curtly, tossing her JanSport backpack at me with obvious displeasure. Before I could answer, she looked me up and down with disgust. "Could you please dress better when you come to pick me up? Are you trying to embarrass me on purpose? I don't want my classmates to know my mother is some frumpy middle-aged woman." Isabella had always treated me this way. Indeed, I had spent so many years rushing between corporate headquarters and the nursing facility that I had missed much of her childhood. She was still young and could not yet understand the pressures I faced. But I did not blame her for her attitude. On the drive home, while waiting at a red light, Isabella spotted a Dairy Queen and began demanding ice cream cones. "Hey, isn't that Dad's truck?" she asked, pointing toward a black Ford F-150 while holding her ice cream. I looked and confirmed it was indeed Ryan's license plate, though the vehicle was parked in the Holiday Inn parking lot. I frowned with contempt. He had lied to both his daughter and me about working overtime while actually meeting some woman for his pleasure. He had truly lost all sense of shame. However, since we were already divorced, I had no right to interfere with his romantic entanglements. "Your father probably has business to attend to. Let me drive you home now." After coaxing Isabella back into the car, I was just about to start the engine when I noticed a familiar figure. Stephanie emerged wearing a fashionable outfit and carrying a Coach handbag, walking quickly toward the hotel entrance. Why would she be there? Could it possibly be that? A terrible suspicion suddenly formed in my mind. I asked Isabella to wait in the car while I followed Stephanie inside. She entered a room on the second floor. After the door closed, I immediately approached and pressed my ear against it. Soon, intimate sounds drifted from within. Stephanie's voice sounded extremely excited. "Darling, that old woman actually gave me all the money and houses. It's such a shame you weren't there to see Amanda's expression. Ha ha ha, serves that hypocrite right for always pretending to be the perfect daughter. She brought this on herself." A man's voice responded, "Only 50,000 in cash. That old man's 401k account must contain much more. Here's what I suggest we do." They spoke in low voices about something I could not quite catch, but Stephanie sounded even more thrilled. "Honey, you're absolutely brilliant. I love you so much." Then came the woman's moaning and the man's heavy breathing from behind the door. I felt so nauseated, I nearly vomited. When had these two started their affair? And what did Ryan mean by his suggestion? Were they actually plotting to steal Mother's Social Security and teacher's pension as well? At that moment, I wanted nothing more than to burst through that door and hack both of them to pieces. But I knew such actions would be illegal. Besides, since Ryan and I were already divorced, the most they could face would be moral condemnation rather than legal consequences. In the car, Isabella noticed my distracted state and asked with concern, "What's wrong with you?" "Nothing at all." I started the engine and drove Isabella back to the two-story house she shared with Ryan. After our divorce, when Isabella insisted on living with her father, I had voluntarily given up the house to him. Walking through the familiar entrance brought a wave of bitter-sweet nostalgia that brought tears to my eyes. When I first married Ryan, a construction worker, my parents had strongly opposed the match. Blinded by what I thought was love, I had ignored their objections and went to the courthouse for a simple civil ceremony without even a proper wedding. My family had contributed the larger portion of the house's down payment. After father's stroke, while I never expected Ryan to share my burdens completely, I had hoped he would at least show some understanding. Instead, he was now carrying on an affair with Stephanie. Just then, I noticed a familiar red winter coat hanging on the entryway coat rack. My heart skipped a beat as I asked casually, "That coat belongs to your aunt, doesn't it?" Isabella nodded. "Does she visit often?" "About 3 times a week." I clenched my fist tightly. "When did this pattern start?" Isabella looked puzzled, but answered, "Maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It's been going on for quite a while. Whenever I come home from school, Aunt Stephanie is usually here. She claims she's delivering things for you. Sometimes she stays to chat with Dad." My fingernails dug so deeply into my palms that they left white marks. Ryan and I had only divorced 6 months ago. These two had clearly been carrying on their affair long before our marriage ended. Mother called me using our neighbor Mrs. Johnson's phone. She wanted me to come over. Since I was planning to tell her about this situation anyway, I agreed. Mother carefully handled an old jewelry box, placing it solemnly in my hands. "This item is very important. You must take good care of it." I knew this was merely Mother's old dowry, filled with worthless trinkets, some old-fashioned pearl necklaces and silver brooches passed down from my grandmother. She was trying to placate me with this gesture, hoping I would stop competing with Stephanie. Suppressing my hurt feelings, I told her everything I had discovered. I assumed that on this matter at least she would take my side. To my shock, Mother listened and simply said, "You and Ryan are already divorced. Why concern yourself with such matters? Look toward the future instead." Filled with frustration, I shouted at her, "Mom, what has happened to you?" Mother was a retired elementary school teacher, known for her integrity and moral principles. As a child, when I once stole a classmate's lunch money, she had scolded me severely. She constantly taught Stephanie and me that while grades might suffer, character must remain solid. God watches over everyone, and those who commit terrible acts will face divine punishment. I began to suspect that Stephanie had somehow drugged or manipulated her. Otherwise, how could Mother have become like a completely different person? I carelessly tossed that jewelry box into my apartment drawer. I was determined that this situation could not continue. The more I tried to endure, the angrier I became. The more I backed down, the greater my sense of loss grew. If I was going to suffer, that pair of cheating scoundrels would suffer right alongside me. I filed a lawsuit against Stephanie in Ohio State Court. My lawyer assured me that as long as I could prove Stephanie had failed to fulfill her caregiving obligations, we had an excellent chance of winning. According to Ohio law, if one heir demonstrably failed to provide care, the court could redistribute the inheritance. After receiving the court summons, Stephanie came straight to confront me. Amanda, have you lost your mind? We're all family here. Is it really necessary to drag this into court? I laughed bitterly. I've treated you like family, but have you ever considered me family? To be completely honest, I had once genuinely regarded Stephanie as my dear sister. That changed when I discovered she had secretly put laxatives in my water bottle before the SAT exam and planted cheat sheets in my pencil case. When our parents confronted us, she played the victim masterfully and even managed to blame me. Stephanie tried to use Mother as leverage, but regardless of her arguments, I remained unmoved. Seeing my determination to fight her, Stephanie's eyes flashed with malicious intent. Amanda, I strongly advise you to drop this lawsuit. You know I have many friends on the outside. After today, some of them might feel compelled to seek justice on my behalf. I recognized this as a direct threat, but I was not easily intimidated. What belonged to me, I would never covet. What was rightfully mine, I would never surrender. After delivering her warning, Stephanie left. I assumed she was merely trying to scare me. However, as I returned home from work that evening, a man wearing a baseball cap and face mask suddenly approached me in the apartment building's parking lot, pressing a knife against my lower back and forcing me into an alley without security cameras. Once inside the secluded space, the man immediately pushed me against the brick wall and began tearing at my clothes while groping me inappropriately. I forced myself to remain calm and pretend compliance. When his guard dropped, I pulled out the pepper spray from my pocket and aimed it directly at his eyes. The man covered his face, screaming in agony. As I attempted to escape, he grabbed me and pulled me back. I struggled desperately and managed to kick him hard in the groin. Enraged, the man stabbed me in the stomach. The cold sensation arrived before the pain. I collapsed in a pool of blood, staring at the grey sky overhead as I felt life slowly draining from my body. Fortunately, a good Samaritan called for help, and the knife had missed vital organs. I narrowly escaped death. I suspected Stephanie was behind this attack. Sure enough, police used fingerprint evidence to identify the perpetrator as one of Stephanie's criminal associates, a repeat offender. After several days of recovery, I went to the Columbus Police Department to assist with the investigation. Stephanie had also been summoned, with Mother accompanying her. Yet during my entire hospitalization, Mother had never once come to see me. My heart grew increasingly cold. Before the police could fully explain the incident to them, Mother suddenly approached me and with trembling hands, slapped me hard across the face. My head snapped to the side, my cheek burning with pain. Mother pointed at my face, her facial muscles twitching with agitation. To fight over this inheritance, you would stoop to such despicable methods. I am deeply disappointed in you. How could I have raised such a daughter? Previously, even the smallest cut on my hand would cause Mother days of worry. Now, standing before her with serious injuries, she struck me without determining the facts. Her expression clearly showed she viewed me as an enemy. Even the police officer could not tolerate this treatment, intervening to say, "Ma'am, please calm down. Your daughter is the victim here, and the perpetrator has confessed that your other daughter instructed him." Mother looked at me with cold amusement. Who knows if this wasn't all an elaborate performance? My Stephanie is well behaved and sensible. She would never do such things. Stephanie also spoke through tears. "Amanda, you're really wronging me. How could I possibly do something like this?" The police lacked additional evidence directly linking Stephanie to the crime. They had to let her go. While Stephanie continued her act of innocence before the police and Mother, she secretly gave me an obscene gesture behind their backs. I felt my blood pressure rising and wanted nothing more than to attack her with suicidal fury. Perhaps due to emotional stress, or perhaps from Mother's slap, I felt my wound beginning to reopen. Just steps outside the police station, I doubled over in pain. Blood had soaked through my shirt and darkness clouded my vision. At that moment, Mother and Stephanie were only a few steps away. I weakly called out, "Mom!" Mother turned around. Before losing consciousness, I saw her eyes widen in apparent concern, as though she might approach me. I awakened once again in Ohio State University Medical Center. The sharp smell of disinfectant made me dizzy. I called over a nurse. "Excuse me, who brought me here?" "Some passers-by saw you collapsed and called for an ambulance." My heart turned completely cold. Mother actually despised me to such a degree that she would not even ensure my medical care when I collapsed before her eyes. What had I, her biological daughter, done so wrong to earn such hatred? I picked up my iPhone with bitter laughter and dialed my lawyer. "Hello, I have another question. If I wanted to completely sever family ties to avoid future conflicts, what legal steps should I take?" Surprisingly, my daughter Isabella came to visit me in the hospital. She sat beside my bed looking somewhat uncomfortable. "Why are you so foolish? Even a kid like me knows not to walk alone in parking lots at night." I could tell she was showing concern, though her words came out wrong. This stubborn exterior hiding a soft heart was something she had inherited from me. "Does your father know you're here?" "He told me not to come, but I was worried that if you actually died, I'd have no mother left." As she spoke, Isabella kept picking at her fingers. I sensed she had something important to tell me. "What's troubling you?" Isabella hesitated before saying, "I think my dad and my aunt are acting really strange." My heart leaped. I urgently asked, "Strange in what way?" "I can't really explain it." Isabella's expression looked disgusted. "Basically, they're grossly affectionate like couples on television." My nails dug into my flesh as my hatred deepened once more. Their secret affair was bad enough, but now they were not even discreet in front of the child. Such arrogance meant they had stopped bothering to pretend. I refused to tolerate this any longer. Stephanie was a habitual home wrecker who specialized in seducing married men. She enjoyed these relationships partly because these men would spend money on her, and partly because the thrill of adultery provided her with twisted excitement. Though I had known about her sordid activities before, I had refrained from interference to spare my parents' feelings. Now I had no such concerns. Although evidence was difficult to obtain, Stephanie had a habit of creating fake social media accounts to taunt the wives of her lovers with cryptic messages. I selected 2 women who appeared wealthy and temperamental, anonymously providing them with Stephanie's identity and photographs. Soon, I heard that Stephanie had been cornered by 2 middle-aged women in a Walmart parking lot and stripped of her clothing. Someone recorded the incident and posted it on TikTok. I paid for promotion, and soon the story became trending news in the Columbus area. Stephanie became a pariah whom everyone despised. Watching Stephanie's public humiliation on repeat gave me some satisfaction. However, this was far from sufficient revenge. As the court date approached, perhaps knowing she had no chance of victory, Stephanie frantically called to harass me. I simply changed my phone number and moved in with a friend to avoid her visits. When Stephanie apparently exhausted all other options, Ryan contacted me using our daughter as an excuse to meet at Starbucks. "I think you two don't need to escalate things this far. Your mother's health is already poor. Do you really want to cause her additional stress?" I laughed scornfully. "Ryan, stop the act. It's disgusting." Ryan's face paled. You… That's right, I know everything. Even rabbits don't soil their own nests. Ryan, you're truly shameless. Ryan's complexion shifted between pale and flushed, but since our deception was exposed, he abandoned his pretense. Stephanie and I genuinely love each other. Don't blame her. If you must blame someone, blame me. What a despicable person, pretending to be noble. I rose to leave, but Ryan blocked my path. Even for our daughter's sake, please drop the lawsuit. What does this have to do with Isabella? Ryan replied shamelessly. Stephanie will eventually become Isabella's stepmother. With you causing such disruption, how can our family maintain harmony? I took a deep breath, restraining myself from throwing my latte in his face. We previously agreed that if you remarried, custody of our daughter would transfer to me. Verbal agreements don't hold legal weight. He even attempted to reason with me, saying, Consider this. Isabella is at a critical point in middle school. If you make this public, it will inevitably affect her studies. I stared at him in disbelief. Ryan, have you lost your mind? Are you threatening me with our daughter? His expression darkened. You're forcing me to this. Just then I heard a crash behind me. My daughter Isabella stood nearby, her face ashen, her frappuccino scattered on the ground. Before I could pursue her, she had already disappeared. She would not answer phone calls or respond to text messages. I searched frantically all afternoon like a headless chicken. Just as I was about to call the police, Isabella returned, looking dejected. I held her tightly, my eyes too sore to open. I'm sorry, sweetheart. This is all my fault. Why do you always blame yourself for everything? It's not your fault. Looking at her slightly reddened face, I felt stunned. Her eyes focused on the floor as she spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. Has your cooking improved recently? I have final exams coming up, so my nutrition needs to be adequate. It took me a moment to understand. This little girl actually wanted to live with me from now on. The evening before the court hearing, Mother called saying she had important news to announce. To prevent my refusal, she specifically emphasized that it concerned family property. After consideration, I decided to bring Isabella along. Stephanie opened the door for us, greeting Isabella with a bright smile. Isabella acted as though she had not seen her and walked directly inside. Stephanie's smile stiffened noticeably. Then Ryan emerged from the living room supporting Mother. Isabella looked back and forth between Ryan and Stephanie, her expression immediately turning sour. I sat calmly at the dining table, coldly observing this theatrical performance. Stephanie raised her wineglass first. Amanda, Ryan and I are getting engaged soon. You'll bless us, won't you? Her expression was full of provocation. I picked up my wineglass, understanding that this was an ambush. I poured the wine onto the floor and smiled at her. Congratulations. Both Stephanie and Ryan looked furious, while Isabella secretly applauded under the table. Mother set down her fork and said flatly, Since Stephanie is getting married soon, I as her mother should show some support. I'm giving them this house as their wedding home. Additionally, I have about $20,000 remaining, which will serve as Stephanie's dowry. Stephanie could not hide her delight. Mom, this is so generous. Mother patted her hand. I'm sorry I cannot do more, but everything I have will be yours. I gripped my fork tightly. If you give them the house, where will you live? Mother smiled bitterly. An old woman like me can find any homeless shelter to get by. You don't need to worry about me. Neither Stephanie nor Ryan spoke. They knew Mother was addressing me. She was still blaming me for fighting Stephanie over the inheritance, trying to use this method to force my compliance. I suddenly remembered when I was young and upset about their favoritism towards Stephanie. Mother had taken me to McDonald's for ice cream, smiling as she ruffled my hair. "Amanda, remember that in your parents' hearts, you are the most important person to us." Such lies. Clearly they preferred sweet-talking Stephanie, and now they were willing to live on the streets for her sake. I suppressed the sourness in my throat and forced a smile. "Fine, I respect your decision. By the way, I have several blankets at home that I can give you. Don't catch cold during the winter." Stephanie slammed the table. "Amanda, are you really going to watch Mom sleep on the streets? Are you even human?" Isabella accidentally knocked over a bowl of tomato soup, spilling the scalding liquid on Stephanie's thigh. She screamed in pain. Isabella blinked innocently. "Sorry, Aunt Stephanie, I did that on purpose." "Mum," she took my hand, "let's go, they make me sick." After her words, all three people at the table looked mortified. I ultimately dropped the lawsuit, considering it repayment for Mother's years of raising me. However, the condition was that Mother must sign an agreement legally severing our relationship. I will never forget how Mother's hands trembled as she reached for the pen. With shaking fingers, she signed her name. Linda Garcia. From that day forward, legally, she had only Stephanie as a daughter. I would no longer be obligated to provide financial support for her care. This was Mother's own choice. I was her daughter and Isabella's mother. But equally importantly, I was myself. I had repaid their debt of raising me. For the rest of my life, I would move forward without burdens. Ryan and Stephanie were quickly engaged. They honeymooned in Hawaii, posting 2 Instagram stories daily to show off their happiness. Isabella had already blocked her father completely. When Ryan occasionally called using other people's phones, she would hang up immediately upon hearing his voice. "Mom, how did you ever fall for him?" Isabella would sometimes ask with bewilderment, propping her chin on her hands. "You're college-educated with strong abilities. You became regional manager within just a few years. Dad has been an ordinary construction worker for so many years. You're in completely different leagues." I adjusted my glasses with amusement. "Didn't you used to complain that I was a frumpy middle-aged woman?" Isabella pouted. "That was because Grandma was manipulating me. Besides, you really did spend very little time with me back then, so I was—" Gradually, Isabella's head drooped. "I'm sorry. I was too selfish before. I only thought about myself without considering your situation." My heart ached with mixed emotions. Compared to her peers, Isabella was already remarkably mature. Her maturity came with stubbornness, but mainly from a lack of security. This too resulted from my absence during her formative years. Isabella was gradually growing according to her own pace, and I felt nothing but pride and comfort. I learned about Mother's illness from relatives. They spoke with hesitation, saying, "Amanda, I know you've had disagreements with the family over property matters, but she is still your mother." I produced the agreement. She signed this with her own hand. I never forced her. When relatives tried to persuade me further, I showed them out. When inheritance was being divided, none of them had spoken up for me. Now they had the audacity to attempt moral manipulation. I never visited Mother in the hospital, she never called me either, but I never expected Mother to pass away so quickly. From hearing about her illness to her death was less than a month. I attended the funeral. Stephanie knelt on the ground wailing dramatically and fainted several times. In contrast, I did not shed a single tear. Relatives whispered behind my back about my coldness. It did not matter. Let them think and say whatever they wanted. As long as my conscience was clear, that was sufficient. After Mother's death, the house and savings she left naturally went to Stephanie and Ryan. The couple now lived extremely comfortably. I heard Ryan had quit his job entirely, and they spent their days in leisure and entertainment. I wondered if they would remain so happy when their inheritance was exhausted. Soon afterward, I changed jobs. Previously, to facilitate Father's care, I had accepted a company transfer from headquarters to a branch store. A supplier's owner had repeatedly offered me positions with much better terms, but I had been unable to accept. Now, when he approached me again offering triple my current salary, I gladly accepted. One evening after a business dinner, Isabella carefully brought me a cup of honey tea. "Mum, drink this while it's warm." For a moment, I remembered my early career days when client entertainment often required heavy drinking. No matter how late I returned home, Mother would leave lights on for me and prepare hangover remedies. Even now, I cannot understand why Mother seemed to become a completely different person after Father's death. She had clearly loved me deeply before. Alcohol amplifies emotions, causing me to recall many past events. After Isabella had gone to sleep, I opened the drawer and retrieved the jewelry box Mother had given me. As I had suspected, it contained nothing of significant value. Yet seeing these familiar objects made me inexplicably remember Mother's once warm smile. Tears flowed uncontrollably as I traced the patterns on the jewelry box. Suddenly, I discovered a small slot at the bottom. Pressing firmly, I found the jewelry box had a hidden lower compartment. The top layer contained a life insurance policy. Beginning when I was 12 years old, $15,000 had been deposited annually. I could now claim nearly $400,000. If I waited until retirement, the amount would reach $700,000. Additionally, I found a letter written by Mother. "Amanda, this is your mother. I'm so sorry for causing you such pain." I also felt heartbroken, but this was the only way. "When you read this letter, I will probably be gone. Please don't grieve. Cancer patients in the terminal stage don't have long to live anyway. I always suspected something was wrong with your father's death. Although he had high blood pressure, he took his medication regularly and managed it well. During that period, he frequently complained of dizziness. I had the flu then and planned to take him to the doctor after recovering. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry. Within days, your father suffered his stroke. Afterward, I discovered that your father's blood pressure medication had been replaced with vitamin pills. I suspected Stephanie, but had no proof. Until that day when I personally witnessed her entering the Holiday Inn with Ryan. Stephanie was raised by my own hands, but she never seemed like family. I thought my parenting had failed, so I tried to give her more love, which meant neglecting you. But in my heart, you have always been my dearest daughter. How could I not love you when you're the baby I carried for 10 months? That's why I bought life insurance for you when you turned 10, hoping you would never be constrained by poverty and could experience and enjoy this world freely. When I learned about your divorce from Ryan, I felt relieved. He was not worthy of you, and I was actually glad you were single again. My excellent daughter can live wonderfully even without marriage. During the years you cared for your father, I investigated Stephanie thoroughly. The more I discovered, the more horrified I became. She had not only been a mistress to married men, but deliberately provoked their wives. She caused one woman with depression to jump from an apartment building, killing both herself and her unborn child. I had raised such a monster with my own hands. I was too ashamed to continue living. Perhaps God was also punishing me by giving me terminal cancer. Learning I had at most 3 years left, I felt no sadness but rather relief. I hoped to join your father when my time came, but that old man left too hastily. After your father's death, my health deteriorated daily. I realized I should contribute something to society before dying. If she could kill once, she could kill again. But first, I had to get you away safely. That's why I treated you so cruelly. Amanda, please don't resent me. If you suspect anything about my death, go to my bedroom and remove the clock facing the headboard. There's a mini camera hidden inside. Amanda, finally, I want to say that even knowing the truth, don't blame yourself. This was my choice. Your mother who loves you always. I secretly entered Mother's old house and found the surveillance equipment she had hidden. The recordings clearly showed how Stephanie had abused Mother during her terminal cancer period. She fed Mother spoiled food, ignored her pain and refused pain medication, and frequently struck and berated her. I wept until I could barely breathe, watching in horror. I could not imagine the torture Mother endured before her death. How helpless and agonized she must have felt during those final days. Soon I found video from the night before Mother died. Stephanie was feeding Mother something. Whether due to the food's taste or other reasons, Mother clearly showed resistance. Stephanie's feeding became increasingly forceful, eventually cramming food into Mother's mouth. Before Mother could swallow, Stephanie forced her to lie down and used rope to restrain her hands and feet. Poor Mother was deliberately choked to death. Stephanie had committed cold-blooded murder. I called the police immediately, providing the surveillance video to the Columbus Police Department. That day, Stephanie had just finished an all-night poker game and was arrested while half asleep. With clear evidence, Stephanie quickly confessed to her crimes and received a sentence of life imprisonment without parole for intentional murder. Mother had used her own life to avenge Father. She had also eliminated a menace to society. As for Ryan, although not directly involved, his knowledge of the crimes made him an accessory. He received a 3-year prison sentence. After everything was settled, I took Isabella to visit Mother's grave. Before Mother's headstone, Isabella solemnly knelt and kowtowed 3 times. Grandma, I'm sorry for misunderstanding you before. Please don't be angry with me. Grandma, don't worry, Isabella will study hard and contribute to society when she grows up. A breeze rustled the oak tree leaves overhead. It seemed like Mother was responding. From then on, Isabella and I began our new life. Using Mother's insurance money as a down payment, I bought a small house in Columbus suburbs with a white picket fence backyard. Isabella's grades continued improving. She said she wanted to attend Ohio State University to study pre-medicine and become a doctor. I fully supported her dreams. On weekends, we would visit Mother's grave together, bringing her favorite white roses. I finally understood that Mother's love had never disappeared. It simply protected me in a different way. As she wrote in her letter, she hoped I could live free from poverty's constraints, experiencing and enjoying this beautiful world. Now Isabella and I were both living well in our own ways. Perhaps this was exactly what Mother most hoped to see.